Do you struggle with boundaries with narcissistic and very difficult people who just don't listen? No worries, I've got you. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know a step-by-step approach on how to deal with difficult people with healthy boundaries. Before we dive in, are you someone who is invested in doing the inner work so that you can live your absolute best life, all fueled by joy? I suspected so. If that's you, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you're notified when we drop all of our personal development videos. We usually come at you every Tuesday and Thursday with a podcast interview as well as one of these quick tips of the week. So make sure to subscribe and share. Before we dive into my tips on how you can assert boundaries with very dysfunctional and toxic people, I want to make sure to preference the fact that having boundaries is okay. It is 100% acceptable that you assert boundaries, that you have boundaries. Now, dealing with toxic people, they're going to lead you to think otherwise. A lot of times that they're going to give you so much pushback, or that they're so loud or so victim or so dramatic that it emphasizes that the only thing that matters is their needs, wants, and desires. And that's not a balanced relationship. Now, just note that a lot of times you're not dealing with balanced people. And so it can be really challenging on how you can balance out your needs and wants with theirs. And I'm going to teach you some powerful tips on just how to do that. In fact, these tips are so powerful that I've helped thousands of people just like you, including myself, into redefining and shifting and changing even the most dysfunctional relationships out there. So get your pen and paper ready and let's dive in. So tip number one on how to assert boundaries, especially with difficult people, is that you want to follow my boundary rules. Now, I have 4 boundary rules that are essential for all boundary making, and even with difficult people, you want to start here. So if you haven't watched that video yet, you're going to want to check it out here. All right, so just to give you a brief overview of what those boundaries are, is that you want to have clear, kind, unemotional, and make it a request versus a command. Now, healthy boundaries means that they're healthy conversations and they're non-combative or confrontational. So what you want to do is you want to be assertive without asserting dominance. Does that make sense? You want to be assertive, advocating for your needs, but you can do it with love and kindness. And that means that we clearly need to know what it is that we want to see different and how we want to be treated differently. We want to give that person the benefit of the doubt, and we want to remove any accusatory or attacking sentences, words, or statements from our request. Next, we want to make sure that we're in an unemotional state. We do not want to be triggered, upset, angry, or frustrated at the time of asserting the boundary. And number 4 is that we want to invite them in with a request versus a command, which tells them what to do. A command is stop it, don't do it, back off, I can't take this anymore, you need to do this differently. It's very confrontational. A request is, would you be willing to honor me here? Is this something that you would be willing to do for me? Okay. Preference, if you're dealing with a difficult person, you're probably going to get some resistance, which is step number 2. So in my tip number 2 is that expect resistance from difficult people. I think the biggest pitfall that we make in asserting boundaries is that we just assume that dysfunctional people are magically going to all of a sudden get this wave of self-awareness and totally be thinking of you on the other side and say oh gosh, I'm so sorry that hurt your feelings. Look, it's not that they're bad people, it's that they probably just don't have the capacity to think of other people. Narcissists, toxic, dysfunctional people typically are in a constant state of survival. And when you're in that low vibrational state, it means that you don't have the ability to concern yourself with other people's concerns. They're so thick in their own dysfunction and their own fighting for their piece of the pie that they don't have the capacity or room to love you in the way that you deserve to be loved. So it's really important to expect resistance even following the rules. And my other ones coming along, the other 2 tips I have, so stay tuned, are really gonna help you do that and help you kind of shift that dynamic. So hang tight. I know you're just well, but what do I do? I'm gonna share. when we get into tip number 3. So before I get into that, I absolutely want to ask you to comment below and tell me, what do you think is the biggest point of resistance you're going to get from the person you need to assert boundaries with the most? I love hearing where you guys are hung up and how I can continue to support you on your personal development journey. So where are they going to resist you? What do you think is going to be the biggest point of why they don't want to honor you and your boundaries? All right. Tip number 3 on how you can assert and have healthy boundaries with difficult people is my 3-strike policy. If you followed my boundary rules, which was in number 1, and you are giving them benefit of the doubt, you kind of now in a position where you expect that they're going to give you some resistance, we want to implement our 3-strike policy. What I mean by that is the first time you assert a boundary, there isn't a consequence associated with. The second time you have to assert a boundary is where you start to incorporate a consequence if they're unwilling to be able to adhere to your boundary. And then from there, you have to be willing to follow through with whatever that consequence is. So for example, one of the boundaries that I've used with one of my students was her mom kept hanging up on the phone on her. And so she was, very annoyed every time that she did. She would get really frustrated and then she would call her right back and then yell. And I said, whoa, let's follow the 4 boundary rules. Clear, kind, unemotional request versus the command. That's how we start. So we can set ourselves up for success. And so instead, she did follow the rules and said, Mom, look, it really bothers me when you hang up on the phone during a conversation. I know it's not your intention to hurt me, and I know you're not doing it on purpose to be malicious. However, this does bother me. Are you willing to give me a heads up before you do it again? Her mom, guess what? Hung up the phone. So the next thing that we did is said, okay, now we incorporate the 3-strike policy. And so the strike number 1 is that we remind them of the request. So the very next time you talk, or, I don't necessarily recommend calling right away, but the next time you talk to that person, say, hey, look, last time we talked, I shared with you a boundary that I thought was really important to me, is that I'm really not comfortable with you hanging up the phone every time you get upset with me. I was wondering if you'd be willing to honor this boundary. And guess what happened? She hung up again. So now it's like mom is testing. It's like a dog, right? Like testing the fence to see where's the weak point to be able to get through. Not trying to say that her mom was a dog, okay? What I'm saying is like they're testing the boundary lines. It's like, well, look, you've never asserted this boundary before. I don't know how serious you're going to be, and there's a good chance that I might find a weak point and get my way anyways. Yuck. But totally how unconsciously people think. So now that's strike 1. Strike 2 is now where we incorporate the consequence. So the next time she talked to her mom, said, hey, Mom, look, you keep hanging up on me. This is very important to me that I do not approve of this. I don't like this. If you continue to do it, I'm going to be unwilling to continue having conversations with you. So she was willing to say, no more, I don't want to have this relationship. Now, if you're like, well, I'm not going to not talk to my mom, you could say, I'm not going to answer the next time you call. It could be just a one-time punishment of some sort, right? Or you could say, you could come up with your own reason. If you've got one, put it in the chat box. I love hearing other suggestions. And so then from there, the third one is like, now if they do it again, it's just that you say, look, I've asked multiple times for you to stop doing this. I already warned you and said, hey, look, if you continue to do this, I'm not going to be willing to answer your call again. I'm not going to be willing to talk to you for a while. I'm going to need to take a break, whatever it is. And then you say, so I just want you to know that I'm taking a break. I'm done for a while. Okay? I will call you when I'm ready. And that's it. And that's the end of it. And so now you follow through with that consequence, which is number 4, is being willing to walk away if the relationship doesn't serve you. This can be very challenging and tricky because we feel very obligated to our parents. We feel very obligated to our families. It's really got to boil down to like, if there's not a consequence, then you shouldn't be starting a boundary. Like if you're okay with their behavior, you just need to accept their behavior. But if it is important to you, then you absolutely need to follow through and be willing to say like, this relationship doesn't serve me because I matter. I matter. My worth matters. My self-esteem matters. Like my emotional health matters. And until you're willing to change this with me, or you want to have a conversation about this isn't going to work for me anymore. And so it gets more assertive the farther that you go down. And when you're dealing with difficult people, it's kind of essential. If you're dealing with super challenging people, I strongly suggest you check out this video here, where I'm going to take you through a 60-minute training on how to have a functional relationship with dysfunctional people. Here's my pro tip on long videos like that: increase the watch time speed. So instead of watching it in 1x, you can hit the little wheelhouse on the bottom, and you can increase the speed of the watch time into a faster pace so you can get through that content at a much rapider pace for absorption. I like listening to things on 1.5 and 1.75x just because, like, this is the way my brain thinks fast like that. And now it's like I actually don't like listening to things that I can't speed up because I'm so used to listening to it at such a fast pace. And I talk really fast too sometimes, so I guess that's just the way my brain works. To help you practice the boundaries before you actually assert boundaries, which is something I strongly suggest, I have created a 2-page practice worksheet for you to download for free right now that includes the 3-step strike policy and some examples for you to go off of. You can download it for free now in the description below. Also, if you are looking for a community of powerful, amazing, beautiful women who are absolutely committed to doing the inner work, to living their best lives, all fueled by joy, then girl, you've got to come check out our Rebels for Joy Facebook group that is magical. I mean, that's where me and hundreds of my friends are constantly there to laugh, learn, and grow. You can sign up now for free. Just click the link below. Ready to master boundaries in a big way? Then you absolutely got to check out our boundary playlist and all the other videos that we have on how you can too have healthy boundaries in every aspect of your life, from work, from your marriage, from your in-laws, you name it. We've got a lot of different dynamics here